just thought I'd make a video on how the race went and some reflections after the event. Going into the race, I felt quite confident. I'd done some practicing, done a reasonable amount of training for me. I arrived at the start line feeling good, fit and healthy. So the first part of the race went quite well. I was feeling strong and certainly comfortable at the pace that I was doing. I don't think I was particularly slow or fast. It was just a moderate pace really, and it felt good. I ate a few little bits and bobs. I had some almond pouches and a couple of bits of cheese, small pieces of cheese, and I had a little bit of electrolyte. So the second part of the race, up to Peel should we say, which is just over 22 miles, that was a really good part for me. I was going quite well, and up to about the 20-mile mark I was on target pace wise for potentially an 8-hour finish, and I knew that if I would be able to maintain that pace for the whole 8 hours, it would have given me, on historical data, it would have given me certainly a top 20 finish. But come 20 miles, just a little bit outside of Peel, I started to feel a pain in my right hip, and initially I more or less ignored it, but I had to be sensible and not only conserve some energy, but also to be as smooth as possible to minimize the pain in the hip. But it did slow me down quite a bit. So when I got to Peel, I stopped for a short while just to take stock, and on reflection I knew I'd done well up to Peel. I was more or less on target. I was a couple of minutes over, but I knew that 4.5 hours was still the target time for me to do an 8-hour finish. So when I set off from Peel, I was still confident that I would get a good time, but not long after I'd set off, I could feel the pain more in my hip, and I think also that my stomach had started to slow down the processing of the energy. Not so much from what I was eating, because I didn't really eat very much, but with doing the low carb, high fat way of eating, and from doing my training fasted, which if you've seen any of the training videos you'll know that's how I do my training. I do them all fasted so that the body burns its own fuel source, which is fat. And if I go too fast, the body basically can't keep up with processing the energy source within the body. And even though I'd been quite comfortable up to Peel, it was probably too much, because I did then have a little bit of a slump in terms of energy, and that in tandem with the sore hip really sort of slowed me down from Peel through Glenmay and up to Dalby. Dalby, of course, is where the start of the bigger climbs come on the way up to the Slough. So it's a tough stretch of the race, that for me. Every race I tend to do is a tough stretch from Peel to Dalby when I do the end-to-end, and I am prepared for it every time I do it. I'm prepared for the slumps, so I wasn't too concerned about it. Well, actually I wasn't concerned at all, to be honest. because it comes and it goes. And one of the things that I know you have to do is you just have to be patient, because you get through it and it does pick up again. So I think if you can just quieten the mind when it starts telling you things that aren't helpful, or which don't make you feel good or confident or strong, feel powerful, it can be demoralizing. And if you're not feeling well for whatever reason, whether it's a stomach or you've got muscle cramps, muscle aches and pains, if on top of the physical elements you've got the mental strain, then it's really hard. But if you can ignore the mind and all the chattering it gives you, then you just have to contend with the physical elements. So I just pushed on, I just kept going, and yeah, by the time I got to Dalby, I'd slipped some more. I must have lost at least 5 or 8 minutes probably on that stretch alone. And if I remember, I think I got to Dalby at about 5 hours 45, which 5.5 hours was my target, which I knew would be 8 hours. So I was 15 minutes behind schedule. But each race is different, and even though you might have an idea of what you would like in terms of a finish time, nothing's guaranteed. So you just have to keep plodding on and deal with what comes up, what transpires as you go, and not to get despondent, because even though you've got a target or an ideal for what you would like, if you find that you can't realistically do it, if you know what the timings are that you need to achieve for that goal and they start to slip away, then it can be really challenging. But if you ignore that aspect and put it to one side and bring your focus back to the present moment that you find yourself in, then it's a lot easier. And eventually you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you'll get there, you'll get to the finish. You might not have the time that you thought of, but you'll finish. And one of the things that you can do is, particularly somewhere like here on the island, which is just beautiful, if you're out and about, you can just distract the mind. You can just start looking at the scenery and appreciate it and take it in and feel grateful that you're actually out and about, able to do these type of events. And that's how I do it. I'm regularly looking over hedgerows and across at the scenery. Regular. Probably more than most people, I would imagine, but I like to do it. I like to appreciate where I am while I'm doing the races. And so that got me through Dalby, and then the climb up towards the Slough. I think because I'd gone a lot slower in that section relative to what I had done prior to Peel, the energy started to return and I started to feel more strong, and the pace started to pick up again once I got up to the top of the Slough. And then once I got down to Ballacalawi and I knew I only had 3 miles left to go, I felt even stronger than I had on the way down. I got a renewed sense of the possibility was still there that I was going to get a personal best. True, it wasn't going to be the 8 hours that I might have liked for or wished for, but my personal best prior to the day was 8 hours 38, and I was confident that I was going to get under 8:30, maybe 8:25 when I was coming down from the slog. But with that renewed sense of vigor and energy, the strength that I felt just seemed to make the last 3 miles go really quick. And once the race was over, I then found that I'd actually finished 21st, so just missed out on the top 20 place. But during the whole race, I didn't know what position I was in anyways, so it didn't really have any bearing on how I was actually doing at any given time. I simply just focused on myself and tried to stay as relaxed as possible throughout, and to enjoy it as much as I could throughout, even in the times when it was somewhat challenging, when the pain was quite severe. I was still looking at the scenery, still taking in the sights, and enjoying being out there. It's one of those things that when you're in a race, particularly the ultra marathons, you're just racing against yourself. And for me, on this particular day, I was racing against the clock. That's true, because I wanted that personal best time. But ultimately, even if you're walking with other people at certain points in the race, you're still doing it on your own. But if you've seen the actual footage from the film that we put up last week, I was more or less on my own pretty much for the whole 39 miles. And one of the things when you are doing the races on your own, it's all self-motivation. You're not being pushed on by other people, and you're not being paced by other people. You're just doing it on your own. Yeah, you've got the backup, and they're invaluable, but you're the one that's having to put one foot in front of the other. After the event from this race, the end-to-end walk, I had no blisters. The muscle soreness was only a little bit. And then on the Tuesday, I went back to the chiropractor. That's usual habit for me. I do the chiropractor before each race, and I do the chiropractor after each race. And one of the things that I do at the chiropractor, apart from the body realignment, is that he measures my body stats so that I know how the body has performed in terms of weight loss, muscle gain, and on this occasion I'd lost another pound in weight. I'm looking ahead to 2018 now, and I feel that this next year I want to do something similar in terms of putting in the effort to try and get a personal best for that race now. In the past, I've not done so much training for the parish. The last couple of years it's been very sparse for one reason and another. But this time I'm going to do it slightly different. Come the 1st of October, this week coming, I'm going to go out with a friend and make a start on the training for the parish. It won't be anything major, it won't be big mileage or super fast, but just make a start and take things steady over this winter period. I'll probably end up doing one walk a week, certainly through to maybe February. Or not, as the case may be. I may end up doing more. I might do 2 a week or 3 a week. I don't know, Shia. I can't say that. How can I say that? That doesn't really... That's not me, is it? Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to say I'm going to do one. I might do none. Who knows?
Yeah, okay.